Welcome to my podcast, Today's Dream, Tomorrow's Reality. My name is Vickie Poole, and I'm a master transformational coach and hypnotist specializing in habit change. And this podcast is sponsored by the Enlightened Peach. And it's all about embracing our mosaic life. Now, some of you may ask, what is a mosaic life? Well, it is recognizing that all the pieces of our life, the good, the bad, the indifferent, have all come together to make us who we are. You change any one thing, and we are different people. With that in mind, I invite you to embrace your perceived imperfections and celebrate who you are. This podcast is unedited and raw, just like life. And I am your host, and I have a special guest with me today, and I'm going to introduce her in just a moment. But before I do, I would love to ask you to do me a solid, and that's leave a comment, ask a question, and as always, remember to like, subscribe, and share. So now let's get started. So, this lovely lady right here, we know each other a little because we've been doing some work together, but she's been instructing me, I guess you would say. But I am really excited about diving in and learning and getting to be friends with her and knowing her on a different level. And this is Nicole van Kuppeveld, correct? No? Yes? I know I was
Yes,
going to
I
butcher the last
am.
name.
Yes, I am Nicole van Kuppeveld.
Okay. All right. So I know her, like I just alluded to, because I have been part of a 10-week program, Women's Leadership. And oh my gosh, let me tell you, it has been off the chain with how much knowledge that I've gained. And I'm really excited about starting to offer these programs out for myself under her tutelage. And so I'm really excited to share her with you guys. And she's going to tell you a little bit about her. She has a book. There's so much we're going to dive into. But for now, just go ahead and give them a little intro, Nicole, on who you are.
Sure. I'm the creator and lead facilitator of the Women's Leadership Series that Vickie is referring to. This is a transformational, groundbreaking, cutting edge program that's based on research about women in leadership, as well as 25 years of experience that I bring to the table as a leader, including a designation in leadership and organizational development. I call myself a leadership researcher. I am also the CEO and founder of Organizations by Design. And one of my most favorite things to do, although I work with leaders of all genders, is to empower women leaders to step fully into their power and their presence through what I call a feminine inspired leadership approach. And I actually wrote a book that was released on Amazon just a few days ago, September 30th, and it goes by the same name. It's called Feminine Inspired Leadership: Power Redefined, Leadership Reimagined. And I'm just so excited about that book getting out there and people having the opportunity to apply its very practical tools and strategies. So thank you so much, Vickie, for having me here today. It's been a pleasure to have you in my life as a women's leadership facilitator. And like you said, you're going to be doing a series that starts on December 3rd.
Yes. We've changed it so many times. It's like, what is it? Okay. So what I would love to do is just to kind of go back in time. So when you were really young, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, I think I wanted to be a leader. For a while, I wanted to be a physician, but I knew I wanted to be a leader because there's a picture of me on the road in front of our duplex with me as the leader of the parade and all of these kids on the block in their outfits and their wagons and their trikes that were decorated. But I wasn't just the leader of the parade. I was the leader. I call myself the chief engagement officer. Like everybody got to be themselves and, show up in the parade in a way that, was meaningful for them. So I was kind of the architect or the co-creator of that. And we did lots of games as kids. And so my cousins still remember and my siblings, these games that we would play, damsel in distress, and the Olympics, and so I just remember, kind of always wanting to create really
Mm-hmm.
great experiences for people.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. I can almost envision that right now. I'd love to see that picture that you're talking about.
I need to find it. Yeah, I
Yes,
would
you
like to see
do.
it too.
Yeah, you do. So do you have siblings?
I had two brothers,
Hmm.
yes, two younger brothers. So I was the older, and apparently the new politically correct word is directive, not
Oh.
bossy. So I had, yes. Um,
My older sister will like that because she's the bossy one. She says it's me, but I know it's her.
yeah, but bossy has some negative connotations. So
Yeah.
apparently the new politically correct term is directive. So yes, I was the
Okay.
directive older sister of two younger brothers. Yeah.
All right. All right. So that's cool. I love it. So how about your parents? Were they in that where they were the leaders of things and that's how you kind of got into that? Or what do you think got you into feeling like this leader that wanted to bring people together creatively?
Yeah, I think my dad was the most influential, and he was probably the role model for that. He was in his career, he ended up being the general manager of Lafarge Canada, but he really practiced this feminine inspired leadership at home and in the
Mm-hmm.
community as a coach and at work. And so I actually dedicated the book to him. I think he was a real inspiration and a role model to me about just yeah, true leadership.
Beautiful. So how did he bring that to home, the women's leadership at home? What does that look like?
Yeah, well, I think we have to differentiate between the word woman and feminine because I'm
Okay,
very
feminine.
careful to tell people that although the Women's Leadership Series has the underpinnings of feminine inspired leadership, it has so much more that's very specific for women leaders. But a feminine inspired leadership approach is really about bringing those feminine qualities that are so desired and needed in today's world, like collaboration and intuition and, um, you know, like those kinds of things versus, some of the traditional masculine energy. And I think
Hmm.
that that's what my dad did. I mean, in the home, he was, not the guy who came home and sat on the couch with the newspaper. I mean, he's
Hmm.
very actively involved in the household. He was the vacuumer, he did cooking, he was the grocery shopper. Like, I mean, he was changing diapers in an era where, dads didn't really
Yeah.
do that. I know that sounds weird now. And he was very, involved in our lives, whether it was coaching soccer, showing up at our games. And it was really cute because even into his late age and as he was taken by dementia, he would still attend like the soccer games of my oldest daughter. So he's always involved in, what we were doing, like our cheerleader. And yeah, he was kind of the wind beneath our wings. So.
Beautiful. I love that. You know,
Mhm.
it's a lot when you think about it because way back, and it's not really that far way back, right? That women were supposed to do all the household duties, take care of the kids and everything, and the dads were supposed to be the breadwinners and come home and, where's my supper? Where's my slippers kind of thing, right? And I grew up in a family that my mom and dad were both workers. They were entrepreneurs. They had their own hair salon. And so when they came home, it wasn't that way because they were both away from the home the same amount of time. They both worked hard. They came home and, they just kind of shared it out. But I will say, I think my mom took on the most of those tasks, but my dad did some of the vacuuming and things. But it wasn't one of those like you saw on TV. And I remember thinking when I would watch those shows when I was a little kid, and the mom would be home, especially with her little apron, and she'd be cooking. And I used to wish, now my mom would die if she heard I said this. I don't want to say it. My mom would not be happy if she heard I say this. Um, but I used to wish I had that mom because she was always there when you came home. She had cookies, she had all these things. But I think I was blessed like you are with your dad. I was blessed that I had the mom that did work and did teach me how to be an entrepreneur and all those things. So it's interesting when we look back at our family and how it actually shaped us in so many different ways. You know what I mean?
She was that role model for you. And mom was a little bit more of the traditional mom. I mean, she was mostly a stay-at-home mom, which was beautiful in all the ways that you
See,
talked about.
I knew it would be.
But she also went in and out of the workforce. She had a certificate. She was trained as a legal aid, and she would go back to work when we'd want to go to Disneyland, or she'd go back and take a
Okay.
job and renovate the kitchen. So, I mean, she was in and out of the workforce, but she was predominantly a stay-at-home mom, that's for sure.
So
Yeah.
you had the best of both worlds. I love it. I love it. That's probably why you're so well-rounded now. So, as you got older, did you always think? I know you said when you were young and you were this facilitator, getting everybody together and making sure everybody was being themselves and doing these parades and everything. So, how did that really transpire as you got older and you're in school and college or whatever, wherever it is? How did that did it keep playing out in that way, or did you get away from it for a while?
No, I mean, I think I really think it's important to include everybody and really leverage everybody, whether it's your college, group project, or, whether it's an initiative in community. And so, I mean, one really good example that stands out is I decided to run for city level or municipal level as a candidate.
Mm-hmm.
And we had 65 people who came out and dropped 5,000 doors. So they went to brochures of 5,000 doors they dropped in one weekend. And so there were older people like my parents, and there were colleagues from work, and there were friends of the kids' friends, and there was moms with babies in strollers. And we gather, like, they come in and out around the fire in the backyard and talk about politics. And I mean, there was just so much energy around that campaign, like really getting people involved in, you can't do it by yourself. I mean, I had a team of 9, which was huge, where people were really invested in, that campaign. But it was just fun. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
just really fun. And I think everybody had a positive experience from that. And, we leveraged people's strengths. For some people, it was just putting on the running shoes and getting out to the doors. But for other people, it was coordinating, social media. It was coordinating door knockers. It was, putting copy together for brochures. And so, finances. We had a bossy campaign manager, which we need.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it
Mm-hmm.
was, I just like getting, and I've done that with my team. So when I have led, and I've had a number of different leadership roles over the years, I really like to do that with my teams, and that happens currently with my teams. So yeah, I just think it's really important for people to feel like, they're important and they make a contribution, and that they bring specific skills and experience, and we want to tap into that, and do great things together.
Yeah, it sounds like one of your really exceptional skills too is to be able to tell what people's gifts are so that you can actually help to pull it out of them a little bit more, maybe, and help them be a more active participant on the team, whatever, wherever that team is. Is that accurate
Ab-
statement?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And I hire to that too, right? I mean, I hire to the gaps. I hire to um, complement the team, right? Like, we have what I call experts in, their areas, where we work very interdependently together from across the world, but they all, bring their own zone of genius to the table. And so
Yeah.
I hire for that.
Yeah. Well, the to me, that's an exceptional skill because, so many people that get into leadership roles, from my opinion, now this is just my opinion, doesn't mean it's true. Um, they tend to want to be on the pedestal up here, and they don't want to help lift people into their greatest genius because they want to still maintain this level of superiority over people kind of thing. So to me, it's an amazing skill when somebody is not looking at everybody as competition. It's everybody's there to for the goal of whatever the whole unit is. That's what I feel from you. You're all about the whole thing, And so everybody gets pulled up and entertained with their level of expertise. And you just kind of wrap them in a cocoon and say, okay, you do your part really well, and we're all going to flourish.
Yeah, and I love that sort of triangle that you use because I would just like flatten it down, right? Because
Hmm.
it really is about a flatter organization. I mean, that doesn't mean that as the CEO or as the leader on my team or any leader or CEO or executive director that's listening, that you also have a very distinct role to, provide the resources, remove the barriers, cheer the team on, hire the right people, encourage that kind of environment where we all um, recognize and value all of those people that are sitting together as part of our team. And that old, I'm the top of the heap, I'm the authority, I know better than anybody else. I've worked for a few bosses like that, Vickie, so I know exactly what you're talking about. And I've worked for women like that and men. So I'm very careful to say that form of leadership that you're recognizing in me, it's accessible to men because I had a boss that hired me not once, but twice. And he, in addition to my father, was instrumental in teaching me about this feminine inspired leadership approach. He modeled that. My colleague, my right hand person, Tanner, who's our organizational learning development specialist, he is the perfect epitome of feminine inspired leadership. So I just need your listeners to know that if there's men out there, this book that we're talking about and this approach to leadership that Vickie described, that's flatter, where we're really doing all those things she talked about, it's not just for women, it's for men too.
Right, right. And that's one of the things I loved about taking this women's leadership course with you was I'm never been in the corporate executive realm. I've been an entrepreneur, but it still was relevant to me. But what I loved was there's so many things, and you touch on it in the women's leadership program. There's so many times that as women, or maybe men with some feminine type leadership qualities, are kind of held back because they're told, no, that's not how you do this, because they want this hierarchy to stay. And in order to not have that hierarchy, you got to be open to listening to what other people say. You have to be receptive. And those are normally feminine qualities that women typically have. So I love how you touch on that in the program, and it helped me see that a lot of the things that I did naturally was actually a leadership quality. Who knew?
Such a great story, Vickie. That's awesome. Yeah.
So I'm just curious, and I know you just got the book published, but you've been doing this women's leadership stuff for a little bit. Um, so what transpired that had you suddenly say, I think I need to teach this because I'm not seeing it here, or this just happened? What was it that, because there's usually something, people usually create amazing things because there's something lacking and it happens in their life that they see it and then they do something about it. So, what happened that had you want to do something about it?
Well, I think like every leader, it starts with you or me in this case. So I had been a student of leadership my whole life, starting at that parade on Weatherstone, Crescent in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And I did all kinds of things, Girl Guide leadership. I mean, I was part of a service league where I got a ton of leadership training. I moved into leadership roles in my jobs, managed different teams, very different sizes in very different sectors. But what happened to me is I was hired by a non-feminine inspired leader, a female,
Uh-huh.
and she was in charge of a team of 55 of us executives. So we were doing a state health authority role, and she actually said on the line when all of us were present that basically insinuated that we were all inept and that she needed to be cloned like Dolly the sheep.
Mm,
I was just glad I
wow.
was in a different room on a monitor, and she wasn't kidding. It wasn't a joke. And so I got I got fired 6 weeks into that job, and it was my dream job. I mean, my resume came to the top of a pile. I was told this by the HR director that I was like the number one candidate out of a stack of like 500 that had come in. I mean, and when she terminated me for my job, she said to me, she said, Nicole, I need you to hear me, and I need you to know that this has absolutely nothing to do with you. So I was like, okay, I bounced back. I was back in the game not too long after that. But then I really had this question, like, what is happening? What happened in that scenario? And what is going on with women in the workplace? Now, I'm trained as a psychiatric occupational therapist. That's my undergrad work. And I know all about relational aggression. That's called mean girl behavior
Yeah.
in the real world for the listeners. And what I needed to do was figure out like what was going on. So what happens is that competition, that mean girl behavior, that plays itself out in corporate boardrooms and in executive suites like the one that I was in. And so she was threatened by me. I wasn't going to take her job. I just wanted to get in there and just, add my value. But for whatever reason, she was threatened. And so she took me out. And so I found this amazing program on feminine power, and it answered all of those questions about what was happening and all of those things that collectively as women we have done since the beginning of time, and how that has played itself out for us as we've attempted to move into leadership roles, and particularly as we move into those more elite leadership roles. And I had my own personal transformation. So I had to figure out what my old story was and how I needed to address that and address the growth edges. And then I'm just like, I can't keep this to myself. Like, so the Women's Leadership Series is a culmination of those 25 years, that feminine inspired leadership, but it's got all of that extra added information where we begin to understand about how to shatter our in glass ceiling, about how it is that we deal with the paradoxes that we alone as women face in the workplace. And sorry, guys, you don't face it. We do. We face pregnancy penalties. We face the power penalty. We face all kinds of paradoxes that sometimes men aren't aware of or don't even know are at play. And we need to have the skills and the confidence to be able to show up differently and to be able to have that executive presence and learn how to communicate in a way where we're heard. Like, have you ever been in a meeting, Vickie, where or a community group where you say something at the table and people just like, oh, and then 3 rows later,
Somebody else
some
says it.
usually a male says it, and people are like, that is just brilliant. That's just so amazing. How did you think of that?
Yeah.
And you're like,
I just said it. Yep.
so, but part of that is communication. Part of that, we talk about politics in the workplace and how we strategize and navigate and develop the skills and competencies and the capacities that we need to be able to show up in our full feminine power and not be pushed out of the workplace and to be embraced. Because I really believe that this type of leadership is one that is in dire need for today's times, because that old leadership, that pointy triangle one, the authority at the top, it's worked for a long time. It works for project management, it works in certain scenarios, but it doesn't work in the midst of chaos, challenge, change. It doesn't work. You need a different style to be able to excel in that kind of environment.
Yes, and times have changed. Um, so we have to change along with the times or things become obsolete. And I think that type of leadership is becoming obsolete, right? One of the questions that I have for you is you had this class or course that on feminine leadership that just kind of helped you see things a little bit different, what those missing pieces were. And you had this epiphany of, I think I want to do this myself. And then now I want to share this out. So just quickly, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that may be watching or listening that this idea poof pops in and it's like, wow, that is so brilliant. I really need to share it out. But a lot of times that's where it stops, is that they stay in your heart or on a piece of paper. So, what did you do that helped you not only as you got all of this culminated in here, is to actually get it out into the world?
Well, I think I realized, Vicki, that this was my calling, that this is what I'm here to do, that this is my purpose, that I need to share this with the world, that I needed to figure out a way. And you're a part of that way, which I'm so grateful for every day, to be able to get this in front of as many women leaders as we can in the whole entire world, to set up a network where everybody gets the value of what it is that, you've experienced. And how I did that? Well, through my own women's leadership series and my own feminine power stuff, I had to recognize what were the gaps, what were the structures that were missing, what were the things that I needed to put in place. So I took some huge risks. I mean, I've invested significantly in a international marketing firm. It was time, probably a long time ago, that I needed a business coach, and I know you're a business coach, and I just, I want to do a shout out. The things that you can do with a qualified business coach are just amazing, things that you can't do yourself. So I did that. And I just, yeah, I just said, you know what, I'm going to do it. And it's been um, my focus, it's been my passion, and I'm just doing everything that I need to do in order to realize that vision and to be able to get that out there for every woman leader that wants to be able to have that experience and have those skills and capacities. Because, like I said at the beginning, I'm all about empowering women. Does that answer your question, Vicki?
It does, but I want to make sure that for everybody that's watching and listening that I've got it. It sounds to me like you had this desire in your heart when you realized that this was actually your passion and that you wanted to fill in these gaps for people, that the first thing you did was hire a coach. Or was it the first thing that you did, was it to hire someone to check the market? Or was it you called a friend and said, "Hey, I want to do this. What do you think?"
Um, no, the coaches just come very recently.
Okay.
When I was like in the middle of this, I can't keep up with this trajectory and this
Yeah,
growth
yeah.
that's
Got a
happening, and
you kind of
like
got a lot of
somebody,
balls in the air, right?
yeah, and I mean the growth over the last 3 to 4 months has been like just unbelievably steep, and so that's where Johnny comes in. You know what? Again, I think it goes back to myself. I think sometimes we're really afraid as women, or maybe even as leaders, to like take this big risk. And it's like, you know what? I'm going to step through fear and I'm going to embrace courage. And I am just going to find all of the resources, hire the staff that I need, work with the contractors, whether they're a marketing firm. I build the platform. I built the platform. So I had a pretty little entrepreneurial, so like a system that was pieced together. And
Hmm.
so I've integrated every one of those little systems, which I've tested over the years, into this very powerful platform that does everything from my customer relations management. I mean, we have a new brand, so I invested in just a system. You know that movie, if you build it, they will come.
Uh-huh.
So I was building that because I know that they're coming, and in order to be able to for everyone to have a
Field of Dreams. It just popped in my head. Sorry. Go
yes,
ahead.
that's right, Field of Dreams. So in order for people to be able to have a very beautiful customer journey with us, I know I needed the automation in place. I needed the people that could write beautiful copy. I mean, I'm gifted. I had an intern, a marketing intern. She graduated with a master's in digital marketing. And she is just brilliant at being able to articulate the brand and who we are and what it is that we do. So yeah, I invested in some pretty quality things like a platform, like staff, like partners with an international marketing firm. So I put the money behind the dream, right?
Hmm.
Because you can't do it by rubbing two pennies together. You really have to say, if this is what I want to do and this is my vision, then I gotta put the money in. I gotta
Yeah,
put the
go
money
for it.
towards it. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I love it. I'm in awe. Just out of curiosity, have you ever had your human design done?
I am a Myers-Briggs coach. I have been for over 20 years. So
Hmm.
my profile is ENTJ, but I'm a pressure prompted J. So
Which you'll have to explain that though.
I kind of act like a P sometimes. I've had lots of leadership assessment batteries done over the years. So
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, I'm an extrovert. I'm big picture. I tend to start in my head and finish in my heart, the T part of it. And the J is usually someone who's like organized and ready to go, whereas the P is the one that kind of waits till the last minute. The Berkman was one of my favorite, leadership assessments. But tell me about, is the human dimensions, which
Human
one is that?
design. Human
Human
design.
design.
That's more, it's like more of a philosophical, I guess, but it's also your personality type. And I've had a guest on my podcast that is a human design expert, and she did a reading for me on the podcast. So I'm a manifesting generator 1-3. Now, don't ask me what all that means, other than the fact that I do like to um, take an idea and run with it. But one of the things that I thought was something that was wrong with me, because that's what I was told from a spouse and stuff, you know how we are with that, was that sometimes I run with it, I love it, and then suddenly it's like, this isn't working anymore. It's not that it's not working, it's just not important anymore. And I'll walk away. Sometimes I come back, sometimes I never do. And according to my human design, that was one of the gifts that I have is that when I see things are not working for me or working in general, that I intuitively know it's time to step away, give it some space, and then I can come back, or I decide that maybe that's not my path after all. And so it's one of the things that I loved about it was it gave me this feeling of, oh, I'm not flawed. I'm just, I just have this intuitive thing in me that knows when to move on. And I just recently went to a networking event where, and I wish I could remember the guy's name, but I do not have his book in front of me, but he does color coding. So there are different colors that you like, that depict your personality and the color coding system or something. And that was really, really eye-opening too, because you look at these colors, you pick out the ones that you want, and then he tells you what your main personality is, what your undercurrent is, and how to actually make that the things that maybe are not as good for you, how to use these tools to make them more fluid or more beneficial to you. So all of those things are always amazing to me. And I've done several other personality things before, and I can't remember all of them, but typically I say I'm an extrovert introvert. So sometimes I want to be front and center. Like when I was a kid, every picture that was made of me with a video camera when I was a kid, I was jumping in front of the screen, sticking my tongue out, doing something, being silly, right? I wanted to be the center of attention. And then other times I just wanted to sit back and watch everybody else. And it was like I almost was taking mental notes, getting in touch with, that's what this person's like and that person's like. And I'm still that way to a certain extent. One of the things that I know you know about me, is in our class and everything is that anytime you said, "Does anybody have anything to share?" I'm the first one to raise my hand. And sometimes that's because I really want to share. And sometimes it's because I know if I listen to somebody else share first, then I sometimes will change what I was going to say because either they took my brilliant idea or they changed my brilliant idea into something else. And so I like speaking first. For one thing, to me, one of the most horrible things to me is for somebody to say, "Who wants to say something?" and nobody does anything. And it's like, ah, that's excruciating. And it may only be a second, but it feels like it lasts forever. So, and I don't like that for me, and I don't like that for the person that's facilitating. So it's like, yep, I'll share.
Oh, that was a great share that you did, Vicki. I feel like I know you even better than I did before. And it doesn't surprise me that you have the intuition to know when this is just not going anywhere. This is not, the time that I'm investing or putting into it. It's just not. Yeah, I need to do something else. So I really appreciate that. And that balance happens. So, in the MBTI, the Myers-Briggs, I mean, even though you talked about that balance, right? So even though we might be, on one end of the spectrum, I always talk about that doesn't mean that we don't need downtime and time
Hmm.
to re-energize and sit back and reflect, even if we are that outgoing person, like we always have to do a little bit of that. One of them is just our preference, right? It's just
Right.
how we naturally operate. And the line I use at the end when I'm doing that with teams is I say, the best thing that you can do is just be the best version of yourself and who you are, right? Like use
Right.
your gifts, use those strengths, use those things that you now recognize in yourself. And I love the idea that you're doing them and, being aware of it. I think, as leaders, we need to understand, those things about ourselves because let's face it, when we're building teams, we're going to find people that are going to complement us and fill in those gaps that I talked about earlier
Hmm.
that, we're just terrible at. And so the better we know ourselves, then the more we can find people who are going to complement us, whether it's in a relationship or on a team or at work.
Yeah, beautifully put, beautifully put. And I will say one of my passions has always been, why do we do the things we do? So I'm always in search of what all those are. And I would say from some of your background, you're kind of that way too, as far as what's going on here? What's the mindset that's happening right now for this to be playing out? So I love that. So now I want to pop into a little bit about your book. So, it's just entered the world. I don't have it in front of me, but I will be getting it. Um, and so does it go along with the 10-week program, or is it the 10-week program is something totally different? Tell me a little bit about the book.
Yeah, so I mean, the book is really the foundation and the principles and the pillars of all. I have 8 other transformational leadership experiences programs that we offer out of Organizations by Design. The first one is like leadership fundamentals. It's like, I don't know anything about leadership. I'm an accidental leader. The ED just left town and now I'm it. Right up to Elevate, which is our executive succession planning program. And we were sponsored by a local Edmonton Community Foundation to be able to put together that program for seeing like second in commands that were moving into the main role in their
Mm-hmm.
organizations. So every one of these programs all shares similar things. So the first thing they share is this ability to be able to create psychologically safe workspaces. Now, I know it's all the rage, I mean, and I give full credit to Amy Edmondson, who is probably the person that coined that. A lot of people talk about it, but they don't know how to do it, Vicki. To
Mm-hmm.
be able to create that environment where you can leverage everybody's assets, be able to function as this amazing, unstoppable team, to be able to learn together, knowing what it is and doing it is something different. So that is one of the 3 pillars in every one of our programs, even though the content might be different. The second thing is this notion of being able to build collaborative learning teams. So very different than those teams where you have that guy at the top of the
Yeah.
triangle who's telling everybody you do this and you do that and don't ask
Right.
any questions, just do as I say. So this is that whole thing that we've been talking about through the conversation today is how do we find people? How do we integrate them into our workforces? How do we create teams? And really, in essence, environments or cultures, organizational cultures at work, where we are functioning at our maximum capacity. And you know what? We're having fun doing it. And I like to say, people get to say, hip, hip, hooray, I get to go to work today. And the third pillar is this notion about a learning organization. So I was very gifted to study under Peter Senge, who's a PhD out of MIT. I was with him in Boston just before the pandemic, and I'm a huge fan. And I believe that our mentors can be in books, right? And I mean,
Hmm.
I have read his stuff exclusively. And one of my goals in life, in addition to what I'm doing, is actually to make him accessible to, leaders. And so this whole idea of the learning organization is that we use reflective practice, that we use after action reviews, that we stop at the end of the meeting, that we, in a one-on-one at the end of an event, and we say, what did we learn from this? What did we do well? What would we do again if we were to do this? What would we do differently? How could we improve, when we do this next time? So building that whole process in, and it's not about learning things like how to use ChatGPT 5 AI, or how to, write a book using some of the software that you used when you wrote your book, Vickie. I mean, those are technical things that we all have to learn on our job, but this is about how are we constantly learning together. And so those three things are really foundational in the book. And so, but I cover all of the topics are on like change management and communication and the role of values. And how do we create learning, in the organization? How do we have difficult, conversations? So everything in the book really comes out of how to be able to do all three of those things. And the really nice thing,
Hmm.
super practical, super easy to read, super applicable. There's no theory in there, although it might be underpinned with some 25 years of my experience, having attended 2,500 courses, having been a leader in 25 different organizations. It's all about leading people, and how do we create those environments where people are lined up outside the door, ready to come in. And these are tied to strong metricses. The return on investment for being able to do this kind of high quality leadership training is lower turnover, higher engagement, less absenteeism, you know, more innovation in the workplace, higher productivity, greater performance. And instead of people sitting at their desks thinking, how do I get out of here?
Yeah.
Where can I go and
Is it
work?
is it
Anywhere
five
but
o'clock
here.
yet?
Is it 5 o'clock yet? And how many days do I have left until I can be pensionable and get out of here?
Yeah.
People are actually staying late at work, not because you want them to or you told them to, but because they're passionate about the work and they're engaged in, meaningful work that's tapping into them and using their full potential. They feel like I matter here. I make a
Yeah.
difference. Like what I bring to the table, it's really important. I'm not just some number or whatever, right? Or I'm not being, pushed down or boxed in or told what to do. So, um, yeah, that's kind of what the book's about. And, there is that element of the feminine inspired leadership, which, like I said, are all those qualities around
Hmm.
collaboration, around intuition, around, doing those things that are not part of traditional outdated patriarchal models of leadership.
So, who do you think is this book good for just anybody that maybe works for themselves or works in a corporation, or is it more for the leadership people that are going to be using this information to help the people that work with them? Or is
Well,
it
see,
both?
I think it's for anybody that engages with people, whether you're an entrepreneur and you have collaborations or partners and or clients, or whether you're a small to medium enterprise, or whether you're a large corporation. I mean, we don't get into. I have an MBA. We don't get into the strategic planning and all of that, finance stuff or whatever, because that's not what the book's about. The book is about how do I lead people and how do I create these environments that allow us to do unstoppable things together. So if you're looking for learning how to do that, then this is the book for you. And I think even senior leaders that, one of the cohorts that we're doing with the Women's Leadership Series is going to be in IT and tech, right? Now, Karen, who's going to be my co-facilitator, might say, well, some IT folk, they're really good at tech stuff, but they're not very good at people stuff. So, I mean, it could be good for that group of people. But I think it's anybody that wants to be able to create a really different kind of environment and a really different kind of work experience. And you can, even if you only read chapter 3 and 4, the one on change, like if you're having trouble with communication, you can read that chapter. If you don't have to read it from start to finish. And
Hmm.
very practical stories. There's case studies in the book. There's all kinds of tools. Like I have a resource section and a toolkit for each chapter. So you can just click on that link and go get that Barrett Values Assessment, that I use when I'm working with my clients. Like very just
Okay,
like our
that sounds good.
programs,
Yeah,
just like
yeah.
our programs, right? You learn it, but then you can just go away and apply it right away.
Beautiful. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. Well, as you're talking, I've got several people in mind. I'm thinking, ooh, maybe I need to tell them about the book. I need to tell them about the program. I need to tell them. So, it really helps to hear from you a lot more about the actual book and what it's going to do. So I appreciate that. And I hope that everybody that's watching and listening is taking notes because you got several writer downers there. That would be really, really important. So make sure you get the book and and actually check out the workshops that are coming up. And do you want to tell maybe the next workshop that's coming up so that or the next two? I don't know. We'll put that
Yeah.
in the show notes, but
Okay.
anybody that's watching or listening, it might be beneficial to know those.
Yeah. So October 17th, we're doing our women's only workshop on executive presence. We've run that before. Vicki, didn't you and I do that one? Did you do that one with me, or
I
you did
did
the
number
invisible?
four. Well,
You
whichever.
did invisible scripts.
That's
Yes,
it.
that
Yeah,
one's coming up. So that one's all about those internal barriers. For sure, there's external barriers out there, and we know about all of those. But what Vicki and I talked about in that workshop that we're going to do again on November 9th is, what are those things that get in our own way that are inside of our heads and inside of us, and those old stories. And we have a way, don't we, Vicki? We
we
spend the
do. We
entire
do.
module 2 of the Women's Leadership Series going through a very intensive, very transformational exercise on shattering that glass ceiling once and for all, and just like plowing ahead into the rest of the curriculum unstoppable. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
just really quick, now that you've mentioned that, when I was asking you about when you had all these ideas of all this stuff, did you phone a friend? Did you do these different things? Um, it's because of that. There are so many times that people have these great ideas and then they don't do anything with them because of some inner glass ceiling, something that they've been told forever that keeps them to keep these ideas to themselves, or actually maybe they tell one person and the person says, well, that's stupid. And then they do nothing with it. And then later on, they see someone has created this thing that they brilliantly thought of a long time ago. So I'm only mentioning this because when that's what I really was talking about is that you don't have that. You've, for however, whatever reason, whether it was your dad, it was people that you surrounded yourself with, but when you wanted to do it, you took action.
No, but Vicky, I did have it. Every
Okay.
single woman has it. And I needed to go through that feminine power. I needed to go through that exercise. I needed to figure out which one of those patterns was me. And I needed to create that new story. And that was the clicking point
Okay.
when I said, okay, I am unstoppable. Nothing is stopping me now. I have this new story about, and I was extremely confident. And listeners, you need to understand the women that are in this course, are hugely competent,
Hmm.
capable women like Vickie that are running amazing entrepreneurial or are leaders in their organizations. We're not talking about, women that are really low in confidence. We're talking about every woman, and me too. I had to do that work myself. The other thing I wanted to say was, Vickie, I interviewed 30 women leaders across the globe. I did 30 60-minute interviews, and I asked them, what are the challenges and the opportunities that you're facing as a woman leader? And then I analyzed the data. So I use that also to feed into the course. And I think what makes this course and all the other courses that I offer different, they are high quality, based in research and tried, proven things. This is not some hokey whatever that, I read in a magazine of Psychology Today and I turned it into a course. I mean, I curate 10 different leading edge leadership sites, including Harvard Business Review. And my stuff is always like ahead of the curve, right? And so this is stuff, like you said earlier, this is stuff that leaders today really need to tap into. This is stuff that will make a big difference if they apply it in their work.
Beautiful. Thanks for clarifying that because all of a sudden I was thinking, well, maybe some of these other people can't do what you did. And so thank you that I'm sure they are feeling a lot better now, thinking, okay, she was questioning herself. She didn't know what to do, and she moved through it, and here she is. So it'll give a lot of people a lot more ability to see that maybe they can do it too. So they need to, first off, go ahead and as soon as you finish watching this or listening to this, you look in the show notes, grab the book, do that ASAP, and then look at the schedule for the upcoming workshops, see what works for you. And there's going to be different people facilitating the different workshops depending on when it is. But it is an amazing opportunity to get in touch with who you are, but also in how you can breathe that out into the world in a better way. Did I say
And that
that
is done for
well?
women in community, right? That
Mm-hmm.
happens in that safe container. And it happens through a very specific process. I don't know if you remember, Vickie, but we talk about affirmations, and affirmations are amazing, but they're not enough. We've done them
Right.
before. And so there is a very specific approach that I have learned and that I use and that I apply to take the women through that process of being able to shatter that inner glass ceiling. That's something that you can't do by yourself. That's something that you've got to do
Right.
in community and with that process
Yeah.
that we use. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful. So thank you again for being here. And it's been great getting to know a little bit more about you and sharing that with everybody. And I'm just so stoked with having met you. And just really quick, we're getting right at time. So, but I don't want to take everybody's time too long, but I will share that I didn't meet Nicole before I decided to sign up for this program. I have a really good friend that met her, had you on her podcast, right? And afterwards, she called me and she said, Vickie, she said, there's this woman I had on my podcast and she's got this great program and I want to do it. Do you want to do it with me? And I said, what's it about? She said, well, some feminine leadership. And and I said, okay, I'm in. And then I reached out to fill out this application to send to Nicole. And I didn't realize because I will have to be honest, I'm just going to share real quick, just so you know where I'm coming from here, everybody. Right now, if you look at my phone, I have in my Gmail, I have 46,752 unread emails. So when I said your email got lost in my stuff, I'm serious here, right? Because that is one of the things that I do not do is cull through things. And so it's a long story. However, um, she sent me a note, an email back that said that I had to schedule this interview thing by a certain time. in order to be part of the program. Well, I didn't get the email. And then finally one day something popped up and it was that email and it was, oh my gosh, it's past the date. And I thought, I want to do this program. I hadn't even met you yet. I just knew in my heart after what Christine said that I want to do it. So I'm almost begging and pleading, give me one more chance. I promise.
Let me in, let me
That's
in.
it. That's it. And so that's how important it was to me. And I didn't even really understand it. I just had this intuitive feeling that, yes, that's the next thing that I need in my toolbox, right? And so everybody that's watching and listening, I'm only telling you this because I didn't have a clue what it really was. I just knew in my heart that I needed to do that. So if you're sitting there and you're listening and any of this feels like you want to know more, you got to get the book and get into one of those workshops at least. And then you can decide then if the program's for you, and I bet you it is. And so I just don't want you to be like I was and almost miss out.
And how was the program for you, Vickie, when you got through it and you got to the other side?
Oh, it was great. It was great. I loved it. I learned so much. And I also, you know, I'm a I'm a coach and a hypnotist. And so some of the things, I had been part of. So a lot of the mindset stuff, I do, but it's a little bit different. And the thing that was cool to me is these international women. So it wasn't just people in my backyard, women from, let's see, there was one from South Africa, and I can't even remember where the other people are from, but there was some in Canadian and
Switzerland, yeah,
Switzerland, yes. And
UK.
so these were women that some of them I couldn't understand their accent quite as well, so I had to listen really close. But it was beautiful because no matter what, I felt like we were almost like we were holding hands and around a campfire and we were just learning and growing together. And so that's what it felt like to me. It wasn't like we were, take your notes, do this, do that. And it was just a great experience. And so I'm very, very grateful that my friend Christine had you on her podcast so that she could in turn tell me about it and make me want to do it enough that I kept going because I've signed up for other things that I got a little notification that said, "Oh, you missed the deadline." I think, "Oh, darn." And then I would just keep going. But I really felt in my heart that this was the right next step. So I just want
And here
everybody to
you
know.
are,
Yes,
ready to
yes.
take your own cohort out into
Yeah,
yeah, through this leadership learning journey.
yeah.
So I'm just really grateful, Vickie, to have been here today. And I'm super grateful for you. And I'm so glad that you got in and that you are part of this movement
Right,
to
right.
really take this women's leadership series out to the world.
Yeah. Me too. Me too. So thank you again, Nicole, for being um such an organizer from a young age and getting this thing started because it's definitely going to make a difference for so many people. So, is there any one little tiny thing that or maybe I didn't ask, or that you want to say that you want to leave as the last words?
Come join us on a transformational learning leadership journey, whether it's the Women's Leadership Series or any of the other seven programs that we offer, depending on where are at in your leadership. You will not be the same when you go through the other side. And yeah, come join us.
Beautiful. Thank you. And I'm going to leave everyone with my favorite quote. The best way to predict the future is create it. And with that said, mwah.